Have you ever wondered if the gods we worship, fear, or even despise could be just as confused about their origins as we are about ours? This was the question that haunted me as I drifted through the void of space aboard the starbound Voyager. It all began on a seemingly routine mission to monitor the remnants of the Jarun fleet, an alien race we had clashed with decades earlier. But this wasn't just any mission. This was Mission 27, one that would uncover a truth so profound it would forever change humanity's place in the cosmos. The Jarun were once considered gods by several lesser civilizations. With their advanced technology, towering physiques, and ability to manipulate matter with their minds, they seemed invincible. But even gods can bleed, and we humans had proven that when the wars with them began. Still, despite our victory, whispers of something deeper lingered. Rumors that the Jarun hadn't been so much defeated as they had been, reminded of something ancient, something terrifying. And now, as my ship approached the icy planet of Orith Prime, an abandoned Jarun outpost, I found myself wondering, what truth were they hiding? And more importantly, what did it mean for us? Can you imagine what it would feel like to discover that your creators, your gods, were mere mortals? What would it do to your beliefs, your sense of self? The voice reverberated through the chamber, deep and ancient, as if the walls themselves were speaking. My team froze, eyes wide, weapons instinctively drawn. But there was no immediate threat, no advancing enemy, only the flickering screens and that voice, emanating from everywhere and nowhere at once. Humans, it said, the tone heavy with something akin to disdain. The architects of life itself, and yet you wander the stars like blind children. I stepped forward, heart pounding. Who are you? Show yourself. The room seemed to ripple, the air distorting until a figure materialized before us. Tall, imposing, clad in armor that shimmered like liquid obsidian. His face was sharp, alien, yet eerily human in its contours. This was no hologram. This was Kha'zix, the leader of the Jarun. What would you do if you came face to face with someone, or something, who claimed you held the key to their existence? Would you believe them, or fight to prove them wrong? Kha'zix's glowing eyes swept over us, lingering on the weapons in our hands. Typical, he said, his voice low and contemptuous. The creators always fear what they've made. I lowered my rifle, motioning for my team to do the same. Creators? I said, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. You've got the wrong species. We're just explorers, survivors. Kha'zix tilted his head, studying me as if I were some curious specimen under a microscope. You still do not understand, do you? Your DNA, your very essence, is woven into us. We are not gods, we are echoes, shadows of the ones who came before. He gestured toward the screens, where human and Jarun genomes twisted and merged in an intricate dance. Long ago, your kind seeded the stars. You created life, imperfect, fragmented life, to test the limits of your own existence. We were one of your many experiments. Experiments? One of my crew, Jackson, spoke up, his voice trembling. You're saying we made you? And then what? Forgot about you? Kha'zix's expression darkened. Forgot? No. Abandoned. When your world burned, when your civilization collapsed, you left us to fend for ourselves. We rose from the ashes of your neglect, forging our own destiny. And when we looked to the stars, we saw you, primitive, ignorant, and we knew what you were. Imagine discovering that you were part of something so much bigger than yourself, something you never even knew existed. Would it make you feel powerful or insignificant? My mind reeled. Could it be true? Had humanity once been so advanced that we'd created an entire race, only to lose everything in some cataclysmic event? It sounded impossible, but the evidence was staring us in the face. Kha'zix continued, his voice growing colder. For centuries we have watched you. We allowed you to spread, to grow, to test your resolve. But your kind is dangerous, reckless. You destroy everything you touch, including yourselves. That's not true, I said, stepping forward. We're not perfect, but we've learned. We've built alliances, explored the unknown, tried to make peace with others. He laughed, a harsh guttural sound. Peace? Is that what you call the slaughter of my people? The desecration of our worlds? That was war. I shot back. You attacked us first. And why wouldn't we? He snarled, his voice echoing with rage. You are a threat to everything. You create only to destroy. That is why I have come here, to end this cycle before it begins anew. The air in the room grew heavy as Kha'zix raised a hand. Energy crackled around him and the ground beneath us trembled. My team scrambled to raise their weapons, but I held out a hand to stop them. No, I said. This isn't how it ends. Do you think violence is always the answer? Or can understanding and communication bridge even the deepest divides? Kha'zix's glowing eyes locked onto mine. You think you can reason with me, human? After all that has been done? I think we can try, I said, my voice firm. Because if what you're saying is true, then we're not just enemies. We're family. And family doesn't give up on each other. For a moment, the room was silent, the only sound the faint hum of the machinery. Then Kha'zix lowered his hand, the energy dissipating. Family, he said, the word dripping with bitterness. You know nothing of what that means. Then show me, I said. Show us. He regarded me for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he turned and gestured for us to follow. If you truly wish to understand, he said, then come, see the truth for yourselves. We followed him deeper into the structure, through corridors lined with glowing symbols that pulsed with a strange, rhythmic energy. My crew was tense, their hands hovering over their weapons, but I forced myself to stay calm. This was a chance, a fragile, dangerous chance, to uncover the truth. If you were in my position, would you trust him? Or would you be ready to fight at any moment? The chamber he led us to was vast, its ceiling lost in shadows. In the center was a massive, glowing sphere suspended in midair. It pulsed with light, casting eerie reflections across the walls. This, Kha'zix said, his voice reverent, is the seed, the last remnant of your creator's legacy. It contains everything, your history, your knowledge, your purpose. I stepped closer, the glow of the sphere washing over me. Why show this to us? I asked. Why not destroy it, if you think we're so dangerous? Because, he said, his voice softening, there is a part of me that hopes I am wrong. That hopes you can rise above what you once were. He turned to face me, his expression grave. But know this, if you prove me right, if you choose destruction over creation, I will not hesitate to end you. What do you think? Can humanity rise above its flaws? Or are we doomed to repeat the mistakes of the past? The seed radiated an energy unlike anything I'd ever felt before. It wasn't just light, it was warmth, a pulse that seemed to resonate deep within my chest. For a moment I forgot about Kha'zix, my team, and even the cold alien chamber. All I could feel was the pull of that glowing sphere, as if it were calling out to me. Captain, Jackson's voice cut through my trance. What is this thing? I turned back to my crew, trying to focus. It's something we've never seen before, I said, my voice steady. And if Kha'zix is right, it's connected to us. The Jarun leader stood off to the side, watching us with a mixture of curiosity and contempt. The seed holds the collective memory of your kind, he said. It is the reason we exist, and it is the reason you must be stopped. I faced him, my fists clenching at his words. You keep saying we're a danger, that we destroy everything we touch. But look at us. We're standing here, unarmed, trying to understand. Doesn't that count for something? Kha'zix's glowing eyes narrowed. Understanding does not absolve you of your nature. Before I could respond, the seed pulsed again, brighter this time. The walls of the chamber lit up, and images began to form, hazy at first, but growing clearer with each passing second. Scenes of ancient cities, vast and gleaming, stretched across the walls. Towers of crystalline light pierced the heavens, and ships unlike anything we'd ever seen soared through the skies. This was your world, Kha'zix said, his voice low, before the fall. Can you imagine it? A time when humanity wasn't just exploring the stars but shaping them. What would you do if you could see that kind of future for yourself? The images shifted, showing figures walking through the cities. Human figures. They were taller, their features sharper, their movements fluid and purposeful. They carried an air of power and confidence, as if they truly were gods. "That's us?" Jackson asked, his voice filled with awe. "That's humanity?" "Yes," Kha'zix replied. "Your ancestors were creators, architects of life across the galaxy. They sought to bring order to chaos, to craft beauty from the void. And for a time, they succeeded. The images darkened, the scenes twisting into chaos. The cities burned, their towers crumbling into ash. The ships fell from the sky, consumed by fire and smoke. And the figures, the humans, they fought among themselves, their faces twisted with rage and fear. But as always, Kha'zix continued, your kind turned on itself. Greed, pride, fear. It consumed you. Your world was destroyed, and with it, the legacy you had built. The seed was all that remained. The images faded, leaving the chamber in silence. My team looked at me, their faces pale, their eyes filled with questions I couldn't answer. Do you think we're destined to destroy ourselves? Or can we learn from our mistakes and build something better? Why show us this? I asked, turning to Kha'zix. What do you gain by dredging up our past? Because you must understand, he said, stepping closer. The same flaws that destroyed your ancestors still live within you, and now you threaten to drag the galaxy down with you. That's not true, I said, my voice rising. We've changed. We've fought for peace, built alliances. We're not the same as those who came before. And yet, Kha'zix said, his voice cold, you still cling to weapons, to war. Even here, in this place, you carry your guns like a crutch. I glanced at my team. He wasn't wrong. We were armed to the teeth, prepared for violence even as we sought understanding. But I wasn't ready to concede the point. So what's your plan then? I asked, stepping closer to him. Destroy us before we have a chance to prove you wrong. If necessary, he said, his voice like ice. But that choice lies with you. What would you do if you were in my shoes? Would you try to convince him, or would you prepare for the worst? The seed pulsed again, drawing my attention back to it. This time, the images were different, less vivid, more fragmented. They showed scenes of Jarun civilization, their rise from primitive beginnings, their discovery of the seed, and their eventual ascension to power. And through it all, there was an undercurrent of something I couldn't quite place, an emptiness, a longing. You've built so much, I said, turning back to Kha'zix. You've conquered, expanded, evolved. But you're still searching, aren't you? For answers, for purpose. He didn't respond, but the flicker in his eyes told me I'd hit a nerve. You say we're dangerous, I continued. But what if we're part of the answer you've been looking for? What if working together is the only way to understand who we are and who you are? Kha'zix's expression hardened. You presume too much, human. Maybe, I said, stepping closer to him. But you're the one who brought us here. You could have killed us the moment we landed, but you didn't. Why? The silence stretched between us, heavy and charged. Then, finally, he spoke. Because I hoped you might be different. Do you think hope is enough to change someone's mind? Or does it take more than that? The room seemed to grow colder, the tension thick enough to cut. My team looked to me for guidance, their trust evident in their eyes. And in that moment, I realized the weight of the decision before me. Then let us prove it, I said, my voice steady. Give us a chance to show you that we're more than our past, that we can rise above it. Kha'zix studied me for a long moment, his glowing eyes unreadable. Then he turned away, his voice distant. You have one chance, Captain Rogers. One chance to convince me that your kind is worth saving. The seed pulsed again, brighter this time, and I felt its energy wash over me. For better or worse, our fate was now tied to it, and to Kha'zix. What do you think? Can humanity prove itself worthy of redemption? Or is it already too late? The seed's light faded to a dull glow, leaving the room steeped in an uneasy silence. Kha'zix's challenge hung in the air like a storm cloud. One chance to prove humanity's worth. The weight of it pressed heavily on me, more than any battle I'd fought or mission I'd led. My team looked to me, their faces a mix of fear and determination. "What's next, Captain?" Jackson asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I turned to Kha'zix. "If we're going to prove anything, we need to understand the stakes. What does this one chance mean?" Kha'zix regarded me with a cold, unreadable expression. "It means you will face the trials. Tests designed to measure the essence of your kind, their strength, their intellect, their morality. Pass, and you may yet earn your place among the stars. Fail." His voice dropped, ominous. "And the galaxy will be spared your inevitable destruction. What do you think? Are trials like these fair? Can a single test truly determine the value of an entire species?" Without waiting for a response, Kha'zix gestured, and the seed flared to life. Light enveloped the chamber, and suddenly, we were somewhere else entirely. The icy walls of Orath Prime were gone, replaced by a sprawling desert under a searing sun. The sky was a deep, unnatural orange, and the ground beneath our feet was cracked and barren. In the distance, massive, monolithic structures loomed, their surfaces etched with glowing symbols. "What is this place?" Jackson asked, shielding his eyes from the sun. "A construct," Kha'zix said, his voice distant. "A reflection of your mind and spirit. The trials take the form of what you fear most." My heart sank. What we fear most. Why? "Because fear is the ultimate measure of a being," Kha'zix replied. "It reveals who you are when everything else is stripped away. If you had to face your deepest fears, what do you think they would show about you? Would you conquer them, or would they consume you?" The first trial began without warning. The ground trembled beneath us, and from the horizon, a massive sandstorm began to rise. But this was no ordinary storm. Through the swirling sand, I could see shapes, dark, twisted figures, their eyes glowing with malice. "Stay together," I shouted, rallying my team. "Whatever happens, we face it as one." The storm closed in, and the figures took form. They were humanoid but grotesque, their bodies warped and distorted. They moved with terrifying speed, their jagged limbs slashing through the air. My crew raised their weapons, and chaos erupted. The battle was fierce and relentless. The creatures were faster and stronger than anything we'd faced before, their movements almost impossible to predict. But my team fought with everything they had, their training and instincts kicking in. "Captain, we can't hold them off forever," Jackson shouted, his rifle firing in rapid bursts. "We don't have to," I said, scanning the horizon. Amid the chaos, I spotted something, a faint glow emanating from one of the distant monoliths. "There, that's our way out." Together, we pushed forward, cutting through the creatures with grim determination. The glow grew brighter as we approached the monolith, and when we reached it, the creatures hesitated, their movements faltering. With a final surge, we stepped into the light, and the world around us dissolved. Would you have fought those creatures head-on, or would you have looked for another way? What does it say about someone, how they face a no-win situation? The second trial was no easier. This time, we found ourselves aboard a derelict spacecraft, its corridors dark and oppressive. The air was thick with the scent of decay, and the faint sound of something skittering echoed through the halls. "This feels like a horror movie," one of my crew muttered, their voice trembling. "Stay sharp," I said, leading the way. "We don't know what we're dealing with yet." The ship was a labyrinth, its corridors twisting and turning in ways that defied logic. Doors appeared and disappeared, and the walls seemed to close in around us. And then came the whispers, faint, insidious, filling our minds with doubt and fear. "You'll fail," the whispers said. "You'll destroy everything, just like before. Don't listen to it," I shouted, gripping the edge of a nearby console for support. "It's trying to break us." But the whispers grew louder, their words cutting deeper. My team began to falter, their confidence eroding, and then I saw it. A central chamber, its doors sealed but faintly glowing. "That's our goal," I said, rallying my crew. "We can make it. Together." We moved as one, pushing through the ship's labyrinthine corridors. The whispers intensified, and shadowy figures emerged from the walls, their forms shifting and fluid. But we didn't stop. With every step, we pushed back against the fear, against the doubt, until we reached the chamber. Inside, the whispers stopped. The room was empty except for a single pedestal, atop which rested a small, glowing crystal. When I touched it, the world dissolved once more. What do you think those whispers were meant to teach us? That fear is our greatest enemy, or that it's something we have to embrace to move forward? The third and final trial was the hardest of all. We were back on Earth, or at least a version of it. The sky was a sickly gray, and the ruins of a once great city stretched out before us. Fires burned in the distance, and the air was thick with ash. "This is home," Jackson said, his voice shaking. "But it's all wrong." "It's not real," I said, though I wasn't sure I believed it. "It's another construct." "Is it?" Kha'zix's voice echoed around us, though he was nowhere to be seen. "Or is it a glimpse of your future?" The ground shook, and from the ruins, figures began to emerge. But these weren't aliens or monsters. They were human, emaciated, broken, their eyes filled with anger and despair. "This is what you fear most," Kha'zix said. "Not destruction, but failure. The failure to save yourselves. The failure to protect what you love." We moved through the ruins, the broken figures watching us with hollow eyes. My crew was silent, the weight of the trial pressing down on them. And then we reached the center of the city, where a single figure stood, a mirror image of myself. "You can't save them," the figure said, its voice a perfect match for mine. "You'll try, but you'll fail. And when you do, you'll be the one who destroys it all." What would you do if faced with your own failure, your own weaknesses? Would you accept it, or would you fight to prove it wrong? The trial was over, but its lessons lingered. Kha'zix appeared before us, his expression unreadable. "You have faced your fears," he said, "and you have survived. But survival is not enough." "What more do you want?" I asked, my voice hoarse. "We've shown you our strength, our resilience. What else is there?" He studied me for a long moment, then said, "Now you must decide what to do with what you've learned." The seed pulsed once more, and we were back in the icy chamber. The trials were over, but the real test was just beginning. What do you think? Can humanity prove it's more than its flaws? Or are we destined to repeat our mistakes forever? The icy chamber felt smaller now, the air heavier. My team and I stood before Kha'zix, his towering figure as imposing as ever. But there was something different about him, a hesitation perhaps. The trials had tested us to our core, peeling back our fears and forcing us to confront the truth of who we were. But had it been enough? "You have faced the trials," Kha'zix said, his voice a rumble that seemed to shake the very walls. "You have shown strength, resolve, and a willingness to endure. But strength alone does not make one worthy." I stepped forward, my gaze locked on his. "Then what does? If we haven't proven our worth, tell us what else we need to do." Kha'zix tilted his head, studying me with those piercing, glowing eyes. "It is not for me to decide. The seed has already made its judgment." As if on cue, the seed pulsed with a brilliant light, filling the chamber with a warmth that seemed to cut through the cold. Images flickered across its surface, scenes of humanity's triumphs and failures, moments of unparalleled beauty and unspeakable horror. The light grew brighter, and then, with a final burst, it faded, leaving only silence. "What does it mean?" Jackson asked, his voice barely a whisper. Kha'zix closed his eyes, as if listening to something only he could hear. When he opened them, his expression was unreadable. "The seed has chosen to spare you, for now." What would you have expected the seed to decide? Do you think humanity deserves a second chance? Or is our history too riddled with mistakes to forgive? Relief washed over my crew, but I couldn't shake the feeling that this was far from over. "What happens next?" I asked, my voice steady despite the unease bubbling within me. Kha'zix turned away, his gaze distant. "You will return to your world, but know this. The eyes of the galaxy are upon you. Your actions will determine whether humanity rises or falls. The seed's judgment is not final, it is conditional. Conditional on what? I pressed. On whether you can prove that you are capable of creation, not just destruction, that you can build a future worth preserving. I nodded, determination hardening in my chest. We'll prove it. We'll show you that humanity is more than its flaws. Kha'zix didn't respond. Instead, he raised his hand, and the seed pulsed once more. The chamber around us dissolved, and we were back aboard the starbound Voyager, the cold emptiness of space stretching out before us. If you were given a second chance to prove yourself, what would you do with it? Would you rise to the occasion, or would you falter under the weight of expectation? My team and I stood in the bridge of the starbound Voyager, the events of Orath Prime replaying in our minds. The stars outside seemed both familiar and alien, a reminder of just how small we were in the grand scheme of the universe. We did it, Jackson said, breaking the silence. We survived. Surviving isn't enough, I replied, my voice quiet but firm. We've been given a chance, but that's all it is, a chance. If we want to prove that we deserve it, we have to do more than survive. We have to build. And what happens if we don't? One of the others asked. I turned to face them, my gaze steady. Then the galaxy will make its decision for us, but I don't intend to let that happen. As the starbound Voyager prepared to leave Orath Prime behind, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. The seed's revelations had opened a door to our past, our potential, and our peril. And somewhere out there, Kha'zix and the Jarun would be watching, waiting to see what we would do next. Do you think we can rise to the challenge, or will humanity's flaws be its undoing? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Your ideas and insights might just inspire the next chapter of this journey. As we set course for the next star system, I couldn't help but wonder, what other secrets lay hidden in the galaxy? What other truths were waiting to be uncovered? One thing was certain, the story of humanity wasn't over yet, and neither was mine. Until next time, keep looking to the stars and never stop asking the big questions. What do you want to see in our next adventure? Leave your suggestions in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next mission. Roger's out.